she whispered. "You'll never be a real man like him." 2 years later, she saw my face on the screen and couldn't even breathe. Make sure you hit subscribe and smash that like button, because what happens next is unbelievable. Ethan still remembered that night like a scar that refused to fade. It was raining, the kind of slow, cold rain that made everything feel heavier. He and Lily were sitting on the couch after another meaningless argument, one that had started small and turned ugly within minutes. She looked at him with the kind of disgust that twists a knife deeper. "You'll never be a real man like him," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it hit him like a punch. Ethan didn't respond. He just stared at the floor, watching raindrops crawl down the window. She didn't notice the way his hands were shaking. She didn't see the way his throat tightened. Trying not to cry. That was the moment something inside him broke. Not loud, not dramatic, just a small, silent crack. Back when they first met, Lily used to look at him like he hung the stars. She'd call him her calm place. He was never flashy or loud like the men she used to date. Ethan was simple, kind, steady. He thought that was enough. For years, they built a life together. Small apartment, takeout dinners, weekend movie marathons. But over time, something changed in her eyes. She started comparing, started wanting more. It began with little comments. "Maybe you should dress better, like Ryan from work. You should be more confident, more masculine." Ethan laughed it off at first. But Lily's tone grew sharper. Every disagreement turned into a personal attack. And then came him, Ryan. Ryan worked with Lily at her marketing firm. Confident, funny, the kind of guy who could make a whole room pay attention. Ethan didn't mind at first. He trusted her completely. But soon, Ryan's name started showing up everywhere. In her stories, her messages, her late-night work calls. The night Ethan realized something was truly wrong, Lily came home late again. He had cooked dinner, her favorite, pasta with garlic bread, but it sat cold on the table. She entered laughing, phone in hand. He heard her say softly, "Stop, you're ridiculous," before she noticed him. "Oh," she said quickly, locking her phone. "Didn't realize you were still up." Ethan smiled faintly. "I made dinner." "Oh, I already ate," she said. Ryan grabbed sushi for the team. That name again. He didn't argue, just nodded. But something twisted in his chest. Not anger, not jealousy, just emptiness. Weeks passed. Her affection vanished. Touches became rare. Conversations turned into silence. Ethan kept trying. He thought maybe if he worked harder, loved better, she'd come back. But love isn't enough when someone's already checked out. Then came the breaking point. The night she said those words. They had argued about money. Lily accused him of lacking ambition, of settling. Ethan, exhausted, said he just wanted peace, not a competition. That's when she snapped. "You'll never be a real man like him. He didn't even ask who him was." He already knew. The next morning, Ethan left early for work, pretending everything was fine. But his mind wouldn't stop replaying that line. He felt small, powerless, replaced. When he came home that evening, Lily was out. Again. He opened her laptop without thinking. He'd never snooped before. But pain makes you cross lines you swore you never would. And there it was. The truth staring back at him. Messages. Hundreds of them. Inside jokes, flirty comments, pictures, plans for their weekend trip. It wasn't emotional confusion. It was a full-blown affair. One message burned into his memory forever. "Can't wait to be in your arms again, Rye. He's so boring lately. I just fake a smile until you text me." Ethan closed the laptop quietly. No tears, no shouting, just a deep, silent calm that felt worse than pain. He realized then that she wasn't just cheating on him. She had been mocking the man who had loved her without conditions. That night, Ethan didn't sleep. He packed a small bag, just essentials. He wrote a note and left it on the kitchen table. It said only 5 words. "You were right about me." He didn't tell anyone where he was going. He just left. Apartment, job, everything. For the next few months, he disappeared. Moved to another city, rented a tiny room, and started from scratch. The man who once lived for love started living for silence. He didn't drink, didn't party, didn't even try to distract himself. He worked 16 hours a day sometimes, fixing computers, saving money, building something from nothing. He wasn't running away anymore. He was rebuilding. 6 months later, he looked in the mirror and almost didn't recognize himself. He had lost weight, grown a beard, and there was a new look in his eyes. Focus. For the first time in his life, he felt control. He had turned his small freelance work into a real business. Started hiring, learning, growing. Every day, he became stronger. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Lily's voice still echoed in his head sometimes. "You'll never be a real man like him." He used that pain as fuel, because deep down, he wanted to see what kind of man he could become once he stopped chasing someone who didn't value him. But fate wasn't done with him yet. One evening, as he was leaving his office, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, until he saw the name flash across the screen. Lily. His chest tightened. He hadn't heard that name in almost a year. He hesitated, then picked up. "Ethan?" Her voice trembled, half nervous, half hopeful. He stayed quiet for a second. "Yeah," there was a long pause. Then she said softly, I saw you online. You look different." He could hear her trying to smile, but for the first time, he didn't feel anything. No nostalgia, no anger, just distance. Ethan didn't know what to say. For almost a year, he had erased her from his life. Her number, her photos, every memory that used to hold meaning. And now, out of nowhere, Lily was on the phone like nothing had happened. He finally spoke, voice calm but distant. "What do you want, Lily?" She hesitated. "Can we talk, please? Just once. I owe you that." Ethan didn't respond immediately. He didn't owe her anything, and she had already taken everything. But curiosity, or maybe closure, made him say, "Fine. 1 coffee. Tomorrow, noon." The next day, he arrived early at a small cafe near his new office. He had expected to feel anxious, angry, something, but all he felt was calm. When she walked in, he almost didn't recognize her. Lily looked thinner, tired, and older than he remembered. Her usual bright confidence was gone. She smiled weakly when she saw him. "Ethan," she said softly, sitting down. He nodded. "Lily!" For a few seconds, there was only silence between them, the kind that feels heavier than words. She finally spoke. "You look really different. Happier." "I am," he said simply. Her eyes flickered, like she wasn't expecting that answer. "I've been following your business online. It's impressive, what you've done." Ethan nodded again. "Yeah, it's been a good year." He didn't ask about her, and that silence, more than anything, seemed to shake her. Lily took a deep breath. "Ethan, I messed up. I ruined something that was real. I thought I was missing excitement, you know? I thought Ryan was what I needed, but he wasn't." Ethan looked at her quietly, letting her speak. She continued, her voice cracking a little. "He left after 6 months, said I was too emotional. I lost everything. I tried reaching out to you, but you'd vanished. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." Ethan didn't flinch, didn't sigh, nothing. He just stared into his coffee cup and said, "I know." Lily looked at him, confused. "You know?" He nodded. "Yeah, because I've spent every day learning to forgive you. Not for you, but for me." Her eyes softened. "Does that mean we could ever—" "No." His tone was firm but gentle. "We couldn't." For a moment, she looked like she wanted to cry. But Ethan wasn't cruel. He wasn't trying to hurt her. He just didn't have space in his life for her anymore. He stood up, leaving some money on the table. "Take care, Lily." As he walked out, she whispered, "You really did become a man." He didn't turn around. He didn't need to. Over the next few months, Ethan's business exploded. He was featured in a tech blog, got investors, and opened his own office. Life was finally moving forward. Not fast, not loud, but peacefully. But fate, again, wasn't done testing him. One evening, while attending a tech conference, he ran into Ryan. The same Ryan, the man Lily had left him for. Ethan saw him across the room first. He was surrounded by people, laughing, still the charming, confident type. But something about him seemed fake now. The kind of arrogance that hides insecurity. Ryan noticed Ethan, too. His expression changed for a moment, surprise, maybe even guilt, before he walked over with that same old smirk. "Ethan, man." "Been a while," Ryan said, extending his hand. Ethan shook it calmly. "Yeah, been about a year, right?" Ryan chuckled awkwardly. "Yeah, how have you been?" "Better than ever," Ethan said, smiling faintly. "You?" Ryan shrugged. "You know, ups and downs, business stuff, relationships." He glanced away quickly. Ethan could have gloated. He could have thrown every insult, every wound, back at him. But he didn't. He just said, "Well, hope it all works out," and walked away. Ryan stood there, frozen, because for the first time, he looked small. Later that night, as Ethan sat in his car, he realized something strange. He didn't feel revenge or triumph. He just felt done. He had finally become everything Lily once said he wasn't. But the funny thing was, he didn't do it to prove her wrong. He did it because losing her forced him to find himself. A few weeks later, Lily called again. He almost didn't pick up, but something told him to. "Ethan," she said, "I didn't call to ask for anything. I just wanted to tell you, I'm proud of you. I've been seeing your work everywhere. You did everything you said you couldn't. I was wrong about you." Ethan was silent for a moment, then replied softly, "No, Lily, you were right. Back then, I wasn't a real man, but I became one. After you left." She didn't reply right away, but he heard her quietly whisper, "I'm sorry," before hanging up. That night, Ethan sat on his apartment balcony, watching city lights blur into the horizon. He thought about everything, the betrayal, the pain, the long nights of rebuilding himself. And strangely, he didn't hate her anymore, because sometimes heartbreak is just life's way of forcing you to grow up. He realized that Lily had been both the wound and the lesson. Months passed. Ethan met someone new, Mia. She was nothing like Lily. She didn't make grand promises or play emotional games. She was kind, funny, and honest. On their second date, she asked him, "What's your biggest regret?" Ethan smiled faintly. "Thinking someone else could define my worth?" Mia smiled back. "Well, looks like you figured that out." As his life grew brighter again, Lily faded into memory, not as a villain, but as a reminder of who he never wanted to be again. But just when he thought that chapter was finally closed, he received a message on a quiet Sunday morning. It was from an unknown number. Attached was a picture. Lily in a hospital bed, pale, hooked to machines. The message read, "She asked for you." Ethan froze. His heart raced. He hadn't thought of her in months. But something in him, the same kindness that once made him stay through all the pain, wouldn't let him ignore it. He grabbed his keys and drove. When he reached the hospital, he saw her lying there, weak and fragile. She smiled faintly when she saw him. "You came," she whispered. Of course, he said quietly. I didn't deserve that, she said. No one deserves to die alone, he replied. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I hurt you so much, Ethan nodded. You did, but I forgave you a long time ago, she smiled weakly. I always knew you'd become something amazing. I just didn't think I'd lose you in the process. He held her hand, not as a lover, but as someone who had finally made peace with the past. As machines beeped softly around them, Lily whispered one last thing. Ethan, I'm glad you proved me wrong. He squeezed her hand gently. You didn't just break me, Lily. You built me. And then, quietly, she was gone. The room was silent after the heart monitor flatlined. Ethan sat there for a while, just holding her hand. The same hand that once reached for his during better days. It was strange. He thought he'd feel relief, or closure, or something dramatic. But instead, all he felt was peace. Lily was gone, and with her, the last shadow of the man he used to be. He stayed for a while longer, then gently placed her hand down and walked out. The nurse gave him a sympathetic look as he passed, but he didn't stop. He stepped outside into the cool night air and looked up at the sky. For the first time in years, he felt free. Life after that day didn't change suddenly. There were no movie-style revelations, no thunderous moments of meaning. Instead, it changed quietly, in the way mornings felt lighter, and how sleep came easier. Ethan started going on walks more often. He spent weekends with Mia, cooked dinners with friends, and actually laughed again. Real laughter. Not the polite kind that hides pain. Sometimes, though, he'd think about Lily. Not the way she broke him, but the way she unknowingly set his life in motion. Without her betrayal, he might have stayed small, safe, comfortable, stuck. Now, he was living the life he never thought he could. A few months later, Ethan visited the old cafe where he and Lily had met again after their breakup. It was quiet, mostly empty. The same seat by the window was open. He sat down, ordered a coffee, and thought about how strange life was. How someone could destroy you and still leave behind a piece of wisdom that saves you later. He remembered that night years ago, when she'd said, "You'll never be a real man like him." At the time, it shattered him. Now, it made him smile. Because now, he understood what being a real man meant. It wasn't about looks, money, or dominance. It was about strength, the quiet kind. The strength to stay kind when the world turned cold. The strength to rebuild when everything fell apart. The strength to walk away when love turned into poison. And that, Ethan realized, was something Ryan would never have. One day, Mia found a small box in Ethan's drawer. Inside it were a few old photos of him and Lily, folded and worn. "Do you want me to throw these away?" she asked gently. Ethan looked at them for a moment. "No," he said. "They remind me of who I used to be, and who I'll never be again." Mia nodded and smiled. That's fair. She didn't push for details. She didn't need to. She just understood. And that kind of quiet understanding was exactly what Ethan had been missing all along. 6 months later, Ethan launched a mentorship program for small businesses. He called it Rebuild. When asked in an interview what inspired the name, he simply said, "Pain, mostly. The kind that breaks you just enough to rebuild you stronger." The interviewer smiled. "That sounds like experience talking." Ethan nodded. "Yeah, the best lessons usually come wrapped in heartbreak." Years passed. Ethan and Mia eventually got married in a small ceremony by the sea. No grand gestures, no crowds, just close friends, laughter, and peace. During the vows, Mia said, "You taught me that love isn't about being perfect. It's about growing together." Ethan smiled. "And you taught me that peace is better than passion that burns too fast." As they kissed, He thought about how different this moment felt compared to his past. There was no fear of losing, no need to prove, just calm. The kind that comes when you've finally healed. Years later, Ethan visited a cemetery on a quiet afternoon. He brought a single white lily. The irony didn't escape him. He placed it on her grave, brushing dust off the engraved letters. Lily Ann Matthews, 1994, 2028. Loved deeply. Lost. Too soon he stood there in silence, hands in his pockets. "I don't hate you," he said softly. "You were a chapter, not the story." The wind picked up, carrying his words away. He turned and walked back to his car, the past finally resting where it belonged, behind him. On the way home, he stopped by the cafe one last time. He ordered coffee, sat by the window again, and watched people pass by, young couples holding hands, old friends laughing, strangers lost in thought. He smiled, remembering who he used to be. The naive boy who once believed that love alone could save anything. And then he thought of the man he became, the one who learned that sometimes love saves you only when you let it go. A few weeks later, Ethan received a message request on social media. It was from Ryan. He hesitated for a second, then opened it. "Hey, man! I heard about Lily. I'm sorry. I know I don't deserve to say this, but you turned out to be everything she said you weren't. Respect." Ethan stared at the message for a moment, then replied, "We all learn in different ways. I hope you learned something too." And that was it. No drama, no need for revenge. Just closure, clean and complete. That night, Ethan sat beside Mia, watching a movie. Halfway through, she looked at him and asked, "You okay? You seem quiet." He smiled. "Yeah, just thinking how different life feels when you finally forgive the past." She leaned on his shoulder. "You deserve the peace you built." And for the first time in years, Ethan truly believed it. As the credits rolled on the screen, he whispered something under his breath. Not for anyone else to hear, but for himself. "You were wrong, Lily. I did become a real man, just not the kind you could have loved." He turned off the lights, wrapped his arm around Mia, and drifted to sleep, not with pain, not with anger, but with gratitude. Because sometimes the most painful endings give you the most peaceful beginnings. Years later, Ethan's company grew into one of the most respected startups in the city. He was known not just for his success, but for his integrity. For treating people with the same kindness he once wished someone had shown him. He gave talks about resilience, self-worth, and emotional healing. He never mentioned Lily by name, but every speech was a quiet tribute to the story that started it all. And somewhere out there, if souls really could watch over the living, maybe Lily saw him too, and smiled, knowing that her words, cruel as they were, had forged the man he became. Top Reddit comments say things like, "He didn't just get revenge, he healed, and that's the real win." That ending hit hard. Forgiveness really is freedom. "I didn't expect Lily's death to make me cry. He turned heartbreak into purpose." That's rare. One of the best stories I've heard here. Quiet, powerful, and real. Thanks for staying till the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more true life storytelling.